You feel it before you understand it. Not the cold, though the cold is real, cutting through the seams of a jacket that's done 3 deployments and is running out of fight. Not the altitude, though. At 11,000 feet, the San Juan Pass takes the air and gives you back just enough to keep moving. What you feel first is the silence. Not the silence of peace. The silence of a world that has forgotten you're in it. Your boots find the frozen gravel 1 step at a time. Left, right, left. The rhythm is the only thing you trust anymore. Your body still knows how to move even when your mind has stopped giving reasons to. 6 years as a Navy SEAL taught you that. Your legs will carry you long after everything else quits. Justice stays at your left heel. She always does. 65 pounds of Belgian Malinois, moving through the mountain cold like she was built for exactly this. She wasn't. She was built for compounds in Helmand and streets in Mosul and rooftops where the wind smelled like cordite and the stakes were written in blood. But she's here now, same as you, reassigned to a world that doesn't quite know what to do with either of you. You glance down at her. She doesn't look up. She's watching the tree line, reading the wind, doing her job. She never stops doing her job. Neither should you. The thought comes and goes. You let it. You reach into your chest pocket without stopping. The bill is still there, soft as cloth now, folded into itself 100 times. $5. You smooth it flat against your palm and look at it the way you'd look at a map when you're already past the last marked road. $5. 1 dog. 2 legs moving because stopping means admitting something you're not ready to say out loud. The pass stretches ahead of you, gray and indifferent. The sky is the color of an old scar. There's a town somewhere below. You saw it on a sign 2 miles back. Population 400. Elevation 9,000. One of those places the highway forgot. You fold the bill back. Tuck it away. Justice's ears come forward, both of them, sharp and sudden. She's heard something, or smelled something, or knows something the way she always seems to know things before you do. You don't stop walking, but your eyes start working differently now. Something is down there. You almost walk past it. That's the thing you'll come back to later, how close you came to missing it entirely. 1 more step, eyes down, boots on gravel, and the rest of your life goes a different direction, or no direction at all. But justice slows, and when justice slows, you slow. The building sits back from the road like it's embarrassed to be seen, wood siding the color of a old bruise. 2 windows, both intact, which feels like a miracle, or stubbornness, which in your experience are the same thing. A hand-painted sign above the door, the letters faded to near nothing except for 2 words you can still read, candle shop, and below it, on a smaller piece of cardboard, nailed crooked to the door frame, $1. You stand there. The wind moves through the pass and makes the sign knock against the wood. $1. For a building. For walls and a roof and 400 square feet of something that is technically shelter. You look at Justice. She looks at the door. You think? You say? She doesn't answer. She takes 1 step toward the entrance and stops, waiting. That's her answer. You reach into your pocket. Not for the 5, for the single folded underneath it. You hold it between 2 fingers and look at it the way you looked at orders before a mission. Is this real? Are we actually doing this? The building is a ruin. The porch step cracks under your boot and you catch yourself on the doorframe out of reflex. Inside, through the grimy glass, you can see the shape of a workbench, an overturned stool, something large and iron against the far wall. It is objectively a terrible idea. You think about the candle shop sign, forgotten by every driver who came through here, left behind when whatever life it held moved on or ran out. You know what that feels like. Not the moving on part, the running out part. You press the dollar into the slot of the lockbox, bolted to the door frame, someone's low-tech honor system, still operational, and you push the door open. Justice walks in first. She always does. You follow your dog into the dark, and for the first time in a long time, it doesn't feel like running away. It feels like arriving. The smell hits you before your eyes adjust. Beeswax, old and deep and layered, the way wood smoke layers into the walls of a house that's been lived in for generations. Underneath it, dust, cold stone, and something else. Something you don't have a word for except time. The compressed weight of decades sitting still in a closed room. You've cleared buildings on 4 continents. You know how a space feels when something happened in it. This isn't that. This is how a space feels when something lived in it slowly, deliberately, with care. You let the door close behind you. The light comes through the 2 front windows in long gray bars, cutting across the workbench, the overturned stool, the floor of wide plank pine worn smooth in the places where someone stood the longest. You move to the bench and run your fingers along the surface. The wood is dry and cold, but the tool marks are still clean. Whoever worked here knew their craft. Whoever worked here is gone. You pull the stool upright and sit. Justice circles the room once her assessment pattern, the same one she runs in every new space, nose low, ears rotating, reading the air. She passes the iron rendering vat against the far wall. Massive, rust-streaked, bolted to a wooden frame that's half-rotted but still holding. She passes the shelving along the back wall, empty except for dust and 3 small tins with illegible labels. She completes her circle, and then she stops. Not the relaxed stop of a dog who's finished checking. The locked, weight-forward, completely still stop of a working dog who has found something her handler needs to know about. You've seen it twice before in the field. Both times it mattered. Justice. Your voice is quiet, steady. Show me. She doesn't move toward you. She looks at the iron rendering vat, then at you, then back at the vat. You cross the room slowly. You crouch beside her, one hand on her flank, and you look at what she's looking at, the slate floor beneath the vat. You press your palm flat against the stone just beside it. Cold, solid. You move 6 inches left and press again. The sound that comes back is different. Not solid, hollow. Your hand stays flat against the slate and you don't move for a long moment. The beeswax smell around you, and Justice is breathing the only sounds in the world. Someone put something down there. You don't rush. That's the first thing they teach you, not how to move fast, but how to be still when everything in you wants to move. You stay crouched beside the slate, one palm flat against the stone, and you think, Justice is already working. Her claws drag across the surface in long, deliberate strokes, not frantic, not anxious, methodical. The way she worked a search grid in Kandahar, the way she worked a vehicle queue outside Fallujah, she isn't digging because she's excited. She's digging because she's certain. There is a difference. You know it in your chest before you know it in your head. You tap the slate in a slow grid pattern, moving outward from the hollow point. The dead sound follows a shape roughly 4 feet by 3. Rectangular, intentional. This wasn't a natural void formed by settling ground. Someone cut this space. Someone sealed it. You sit back on your heels and look at the rendering vat above it. Cast iron. 19th century, maybe early 20th, the kind of equipment that doesn't get replaced because it never breaks, just rusts slowly into permanence. The frame beneath it is rotted soft, but the vat itself is solid. You estimate 400 pounds, minimum, maybe more. Someone placed it here on purpose. You know the tactical logic immediately. It's the same logic you'd use to hide something in a compound. You don't lock a door when you can put something heavy in front of it. Locks announce that something is worth protecting. Weight just looks like weight. Who goes to this much trouble, and why? Justice stops digging. She sits, square and still, and looks at you with the particular patience of an animal who has done her part and is now waiting for you to do yours. You put your hand on top of her head. She leans into it exactly once, her version of acknowledgement, then straightens back up. Okay, you say quietly. To her, to yourself, to whatever is underneath the stone. You stand and turn to face the room, the rotted shelving, the dry plank walls, the gray light through the 2 front windows. Somewhere in this room is something you can use as a lever. You just have to find it before you talk yourself out of this entirely. Start looking. The beam is in the far corner, half buried under a collapsed shelf. You see it, and you do the math the way you always do: weight, angle, fulcrum, point, force required. The beam is dry rotted along one face, but the core is still dense. It'll hold for 1 good push, maybe 2 if you're lucky. You don't plan on needing 2. You drag it clear of the debris and carry it to the vat. Justice steps back without being told, giving you room, watching from the doorway to the back room with her ears forward and her weight on her front feet. You jam the beam under the lip of the vat's iron rim, angling it against the edge of the slate for a fulcrum point. You test the angle. Adjust. Test again. Then you set your hands on the beam and your left shoulder tells you immediately what it thinks of this plan. The shrapnel scar runs from the rear of the joint down 3 inches toward the blade. The VA called it manageable. What they meant was, it will hurt and it will keep hurting, and you will function anyway. You've been functioning anyway for 2 years. 1 more time won't kill you. You breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth. Slow. Slow is smooth. You push. The vat shifts 1 inch, grinding against the slate with a sound like something that hasn't moved in 50 years, resisting the idea of moving now. Your shoulder lights up white and you breathe through it. Steady, keeping the pressure even, not forcing, just insisting. 2 inches. 3. And then you feel it. Justice's weight pressing into your lower back. All 65 pounds of her, leaning into your spine like a brace, like a counterweight, like she decided this was her problem too, and acted accordingly. You laugh, a real one, short and sudden and completely unplanned. You're not heavy enough, girl. She pushes harder anyway. 4 inches. 6. The vat tips. The sound it makes hitting the floor on the other side is enormous. In the small space, a concussive crash that sends dust falling from the ceiling, joists and rings in your ears like a distant detonation. You stand over the exposed slate, chest heaving, shoulder burning, and look down. The stone has a seam, a clean one, cut by hand, set with intention. A door. Courage walks on 2 legs and 4. You don't know where that thought comes from. You don't question it. You reach for the seam. The slate lifts on a hidden hinge iron, hand-forged, still functional after decades of disuse. You ease it back until it rests against the vat frame, and the air that rises from below hits your face like a held breath finally released. Cooler than the room. Stiller, the air inside an envelope that was never opened. You use your phone's flashlight. The beam cuts down into a space roughly 6 feet deep. Stone walls, dirt floor, timber-framed ceiling. Dry. Whoever built this understood drainage, understood preservation, understood that what they were hiding needed to last. Justice goes down first. 4 careful steps on the wooden ladder, nose already working. You follow, 1 hand on the rail, your shoulder protesting the descent, and you ignoring it. You sweep the light slowly. The blocks are stacked along the far wall, floor to ceiling pure beeswax, the color of old honey, each block wrapped in cloth and set with a precision that borders on reverence. Beside them, a wooden crate of wicking, a tin of tools, a set of hand-carved molds lined up in order of size, like soldiers at attention. Someone didn't abandon this place. Someone preserved it. And there, on top of the nearest block, weighted down by a smooth river stone, an envelope. You pick it up. The paper is thick, rag fiber, the kind that outlasts everything written on cheaper stock. Your name isn't on it. No name is. Just 2 words in careful copperplate script, for whoever. You open it. The handwriting is old, but steady, the hand of someone who held grief and didn't let it break her grip. You read slowly, the flashlight in one hand, the letter in the other, justice sitting at your feet in the quiet dark. My husband went to France in 1917 and did not come back. I kept the shop because it was the only way I knew to keep the flame. I am leaving this for whoever comes after soldier or stranger. It makes no difference. What matters is this: the wax must melt before it can give light. The flame is not destruction, it is purpose. Do not be afraid of what the heat asks of you. Martha Thorne, 1951. You read it twice. Then you sit down on the dirt floor of a dead woman's cellar, your back against cold stone, your dog's head in your lap, and something in your chest that has been locked shut for 2 years cracks quietly open. Martha Thorne didn't know your name, but she wrote this letter for you. You start the next morning. You bring the wax up from the cellar block by block, set the tools out on the workbench in the order Martha left them, and you read her letter one more time before you begin. You treat it like a briefing. You treat it like orders. Then you melt your first batch and immediately ruin it. The pour is too fast. You know it the moment the wax hits the mold, the way it sloshes against the sides and traps air along the bottom. You wait anyway, hoping. When it sets, the candle pulls away from the mold cracked down one face, asymmetrical, structurally unsound. You set it aside. Start again. The second pour is slower. Better. The wick drifts off-center somewhere in the cooling, and there's nothing you can do but watch it happen a millimeter, then 2, then locked in place by the hardening wax. The finished candle burns for 40 seconds before the flame angles into the side wall and drowns itself in its own pool. Third, pour. Fourth. Fifth. Each one fails in a different way, which means you're not repeating mistakes, you're discovering new ones, which is progress, technically, but it doesn't feel like progress. It feels like the workbench is winning. You catch yourself staring at your hands between attempts. These hands qualified expert with 7 different weapons platforms. These hands have performed field medical procedures in the dark, under fire, on people who needed them to be perfect and mostly were. These hands have done things you don't say out loud in rooms with civilians, and they cannot make a candle hold its shape. You pick up the 5th failed attempt and turn it over. The wax is cloudy where it should be clear, rough where it should be smooth. You close your fist around it and feel it crack a clean fracture, the kind that comes from something cooling too fast, contracting against itself before it had time to settle. You open your hand and look at the pieces. The wax must melt before it can give light. You think about that. You think about what it costs something to melt, what it has to give up, what it has to stop being before it can become something else. Justice watches you from the corner, chin on her paws. She doesn't flinch when you sweep the broken pieces off the bench. She never flinches at you. You stand in the failing light and you don't know if you'll try again tomorrow. Then the storm hits. The power goes without warning. One moment, the single bare bulb above the workbench is burning, and the next moment it isn't, and the darkness that replaces it is total and immediate and wrong in a way that has nothing to do with the storm outside. Your breathing changes before your mind catches up. Short, fast, shallow, the kind of breathing that belongs to a different place entirely, a place with no windows, no exits, where the darkness arrived the same way, sudden and complete, and what came next was not a snowstorm in Colorado. You find the wall with your hand, you tell yourself where you are. San Juan Pass, Candle Shop, Colorado. The words are correct, but they're not landing yet, they're just sounds, and the darkness keeps pressing in with the particular weight of a darkness that has never actually left you. Your back finds the wall, and you slide down it. Justice finds you in 11 seconds. You count them old habit. Counting is something to do with your mind while your body tries to remember how to regulate itself. 11 seconds from the moment the light died to the moment her weight settles against your ribs, her nose pressed into the hollow below your collarbone, her heartbeat against your chest, slow and steady, and absolutely certain. Her heartbeat is slower than yours. Your body, trained across 6 years to follow command, begins to match it. Slow is smooth. You put your hand on her back. You breathe when she breathes. In through the nose, 4 counts. Out through the mouth, 4 counts. The storm hammers the windows and the walls creak and the darkness stays dark, but Justice's heartbeat holds its rhythm, and you hold on to that rhythm like a fixed point. Smooth is fast. You don't know how long you sit there. Long enough. When you stand, something has shifted, not fixed, not resolved, but repositioned. You find the workbench by memory. You find the wax by touch. You don't light a lamp because there is no power, and you don't reach for your phone because something tells you the dark is not the enemy tonight. Tonight, the dark is the condition. You work within conditions. That's the job. You melt the wax slowly. You set the wick by feel, centering it with your fingertips, adjusting by fractions, trusting your hands to know what your eyes can't confirm. You pour without rushing. You wait without counting. When the wax sets and you finally strike a match, the flame catches clean, rises straight, burns without wavering. You made this in the dark, in the quiet, without forcing anything or conquering anything or demanding anything from yourself except patience. You didn't make a candle. You made proof. You see her before she knocks. Through the front window, gray morning light still thin from the storm, a figure moving carefully up the road toward the shop. Older woman. Deliberate steps through 4 inches of new snow, not cautious, not struggling, just measured. The walk of someone who has navigated difficult terrain for long enough that it no longer intimidates her. She stops at the door, looks at the sign, looks at the candle burning in the window, your candle, the one from last night, still holding its flame through the cold glass. Then, she knocks. You open the door, and she looks at you the way people look at something unexpected that turns out to be exactly what they needed. She introduces herself as Clara Montgomery. She has lived in this valley for 63 years. She knew this shop when it was operating, knew the family that owned it before the last of them moved away, has driven past the empty building twice a week for 11 years without stopping. I stopped today, she says simply, because of the light. She steps inside. Justice meets her at the threshold, not blocking, not alerting, just present, and Clara puts one hand down without hesitating, letting Justice read her at nose level, waiting until Justice steps aside before she moves further in. You watch that exchange and feel something register quietly in your chest. She knows dogs. She understands permission. She finds the candle on the workbench, picks it up with both hands, the way you'd hold something you recognized but couldn't immediately name. She brings it close and closes her eyes. You wait? What does it smell like to you? You ask, because you genuinely don't know. You've been too close to it. The wax, the work, the failure, the dark to smell anything except effort. She opens her eyes and looks at you with the particular steadiness of someone who has outlasted grief and come out the other side not harder but clearer. Patience, she says. It smells like patience. She pays you. You don't remember the amount. You remember the way she looked at Justice on her way out, like she recognized something ancient and completely trustworthy. You stand in the open doorway after she leaves, cold air moving in around you, and you look at the workbench, the tools, the remaining wax, the molds lined up in order of size like soldiers at attention. You reach into your pocket, the crumpled $5 bill. You smooth it flat one last time and place it in the cigar box beside Clara's money. 2 different kinds of currency. Both of them real. The world doesn't need another weapon. It needs someone who keeps the light on. Evening comes slow in the mountains. You stand at the threshold of the shop inside the warmth, outside the cold, and you don't feel the need to choose between them. The light from the workbench reaches just past the door frame and stops where the dark begins, and you are exactly at that line, which feels correct in a way you couldn't have explained a week ago. Justice sits at your left heel, not alert, not at ease. Just present the particular quality of stillness that belongs to an animal who is exactly where she is supposed to be and knows it. You look out at the pass. The road is empty. The snow from last night has settled into the shapes of things, the fence posts, the rock outcroppings, the sign above the door that still says candle shop in letters that are faded but legible if you're looking. Someone will look. Clara looked. Others will too, eventually, because light draws people the way it always has, the way it drew them before electricity, before everything, the oldest signal there is. I am here. It is warm. You are not alone. You think about Martha Thorne standing at this same threshold in 1951, writing a letter to no one and everyone, sealing it under iron and slate with the particular faith of someone who believes the right person will find it at the right time. You think about her husband, whose name you don't know, who went to France and didn't come back, and whose absence shaped everything she made in this room for the rest of her life. You think about what it costs something to melt, what it has to give up, what it has to stop being. You came here with $5, a broken body, and a dog who believed in you more consistently than you deserved. You found a woman's faith buried under 400 pounds of iron. You failed more times than you counted in the dark and the cold and the silence, and then you stopped fighting the process and made one thing that burned straight and true. That is enough. Not forever, not as a final answer to every question your life is still asking, but for today, on this evening, at this threshold, it is more than enough. Martha's letter said the flame is not destruction. It is purpose. Your hands made that true. Not your training, not your record, not the person you were before the mountains and the $5 bill and the hollow sound under the slate. Your hands. This work. This light. Justice leans against your left leg exactly once, her version of acknowledged, moving forward, and then straightens back up. You reach back inside and pick up the candle from the workbench. You set it in the window where Clara saw it this morning, where the next person driving through the pass will see it tonight. You don't know who that will be, but you'll be here,